Hi, I'm Richard Byrne. I run the website freetechforteachers.com and Practical Ed Tech. And I'm just wandering through and saying hello. I do a lot of professional development. I'm here this week to learn from other people, other than learn about new tech. I just want to learn from other people. Just saw a cool little green screen thing over there in the corner being virtually presented. That's awesome.
There are so many things. It is 8:15 in the morning here Eastern time, and there's already sessions going on. There's learning here. Richard, what do you think so far? You were here yesterday for the keynote, right?
I was here for the keynote yesterday. I was here. I was actually here on Saturday as well for some of the Hack Ed conversations, and like everything, like every ISTE, you kind of have to take a deep breath and then dive in, and then take a deep breath and then dive back in again. So far, I'm impressed by what I saw with the green screen. I think that's one of the things about ISTE that people I think overlook is that there are neat things happening in every corner of the building, not just down on the showroom floor and not just in the presentation rooms or the featured speaker rooms. But I mean, if you walked over and talked to Kyle Pace right now, who's across the room, he'd tell you something cool that he saw this week, and I think that's just one of the best things about ISTE.
Now, how do you prepare for this? I mean, you said just take a great big deep breath, and for some of us, this is our first time. For some of us, this is our fourth or fifth time. Are you the type of person that's going to be going to sessions? Do you recommend going to just hang out with some friends? Do you recommend just walking the vendor booth? What are your recommendations for somebody who's new here?
Well, I think it kind of depends on your personality and what what engages you. For me, I get overwhelmed by a lot of noise and kind of cacophony in the background. So I tend to like to step into the back of a room and see what's being shared. And I go through the program guide and I kind of look at, okay, that's something that I don't have experience with, and I might not even ever use it myself in a classroom setting, but I don't have experience with it. Those are the things that I target on my schedule. I want to go and at least learn about it and see what's happening. I don't tend to go to the bigger featured speaker presentations, but that's just because of my own personality. The featured speaker presentations are great for inspiration if you want to be motivated to do something new. Maybe you're an older teacher who's feeling burnt out. That's a great place to go. If you're just naturally curious, go and see what other teachers are doing. And of course, if you're the tech director or you're the person who's making buying decisions, then yeah, you have to go on the showroom floor and walk through that gauntlet.
We are here live in the morning here. We're going to be live every single day this week from 8 to 12, and we have a lot of special guests coming up. And if you are on TeacherCast.tv and you want to ask a question of anybody here on our panel and participate, we would certainly love that. We have a couple questions in already here. We actually have people here watching live from Montreal, and I saw somebody already chime in from Saudi Arabia. And what was that? Sydney, Australia is also in. I want to give a good hello to our friend Sue Waters.
Sue.
The first question is, how are the dogs?
The dogs are great. They're doing well. They're at home, chilling out, doing dog things, rolling over.
Actually, can I ask him something?
Please do.
Yeah.
With your status, with Free Tech for Teachers and all the great things that you're doing, when people meet you at something like ISTE, what are some of the questions that people ask you that you get all the time?
The biggest one I get is, how do I do it? Jeff asks me that all the time. How do I do it? How do you get started in educational technology, blogging? And I tell people all the time, I didn't have a plan. I wish I'd had a plan. I would have done things a little bit differently. Those are the kind of things I get asked the most. And then I get at in this environment. Now, when I go to a school, the kinds of questions I get are more like, how do you learn all these things? And if you were going to tell me what to do tomorrow, what 3 or 4 things should I do tomorrow? So it's a different environment. This event, I get a lot of those. How do you do it? School events, I get a lot more, what should I do tomorrow? And that's what I really like, actually, when I go to schools. And that's how I kind of marketed myself, is being kind of practical and pragmatic New Englander. I tell people all the time, if you want Ken Robinson, you should hire Ken Robinson. I'm not Ken Robinson on the cheap, right? I'm going to give you practical things you can do in your classroom. So that's where I'm at.
And that's the unique thing, because you're going to be able to do that. I mean, there's a lot of people who have that knowledge, but you bring a different perspective and a different voice, and there's a lot of value there.
Thanks. Yeah, it's who I am. I mean, that's the other thing, is like you can't be somebody else. One of the things I struggle with here at ISTE or any really big conference is the after hours party scene. Come to our meetup, come to our this. Those are the things that I struggle with personally, just because that's not really my scene. That's not my nature to go out and shake hands and kiss babies. That's not my that's not my nature. No
kissing babies.
Kissing babies.
No, pet a dog maybe, but
Okay.
that's about it.
All right.
My struggle usually comes the next morning.
Yeah, see, I can't do that anymore.
Glenn, I want to bring you in here. This is your first ISTE, right?
Yes, sir.
What do you think?
I think it's fantastic so far. Very easy to follow. Just followed the herd this morning, walking in. But you know what? It's unique to see all the different furniture, all the different shapes and sizes of the learning spaces here. And yet we continue to talk about changing school. We're seeing all this fantastic stuff, and yet we go back to school and we see traditional rows and desks. So I'm really looking forward to trying to take something back from this as far as changing the classroom itself, trying to make it go away from four walls.
How do you do that? You said you're, as a lead learner, which for many people don't know, that's the role of principal. How do you bring that change into your school? There's a lot of new principals, a lot of new administrators walking around here. How do we take this and bring it into the classroom?
I think it's like what you guys have mentioned earlier. You take bits and pieces of it and you bring it back. You have to have a vision. You have to have a goal. You can't just take everything back and say, we're doing it all. That's a complete overload. I think when you put together your plan, you look at the long goal. Where do you want your school to be? Do you want it to be more tech? Do you need more textbooks? Do you need more furniture? Do you need to build a climate and culture and morale? So I think the biggest thing is take something from everything you learn here, whether it's an individual or a workshop. We're just sitting with you gentlemen. I've already learned a few things. And taking it back and then sharing it with my team leaders and all my teachers. You never know who might step up to the plate and run with it. And then there's others who have said, I thought about that for years. I just never had the support. So it's just trying to give more voice and amplifying all my staff to do more. And at the same token, the biggest thing is taking it back to my kids. The students say, hey, I saw this brand new piece of furniture or I saw this technology. What do you think? Should we bring this to our school? So that's a big key component that I'm seeing today.
So you mentioned a goal. What's one goal you have this year as you get ready for September 2015?
I mentioned earlier is furniture. I'm very fortunate that we work in a school that is completely Wi-Fi. We are completely BYOD for grades 5 to 8. We have a lot of innovative mindsets, but my biggest goal this year moving forward is, and part of the process that I've had for quite some time now, is, like I said, revamping those classrooms. Looking to buy couches for in the hallway, looking to buy stationary bikes and so forth throughout the hallway as well. We are in the talks of outside on our track. It's a middle school, so it's small, but putting up together workout stations around the area so the kids can have different areas and so forth for health, PE, ELA, mathematics, doesn't matter. So that's something I'm looking into doing this year.
Very cool. Richard, as we go through here, what advice do you give to people when they say, I want to start my own blog, I want to create, I want to do all these things? What's your platform of choice? Give us some, I know you got to run, but give us some parting words here on how do we do this?
That's good timing in your question, because I just had a great friend who's not in education at all, is a fitness freak. She's runs sub 3-hour marathons. Asked me, how do I get into motivational speaking? And I said, well, why don't you start with a blog? So we had this long text message exchange last night. Went on for about 15 minutes of text messaging on all those questions you just asked. So, my number one tip is do something. Like, don't spend hours and hours fretting over design. I mean, Lord knows I am not a graphic designer at all. Look at anything I've ever tried to graphically design. It's terrible, which is why I now hire somebody to do that stuff. But the thing that people get hung up on is, I have to make it perfect. And no, you don't. Just kind of ship it out there, iterate. All the Silicon Valley buzzwords really. That's the biggest thing, and you have to stick with it. I think that's the other big piece. Is I say a lot of times, blog like only your mother is reading, and by that I mean, like, if your mother was depending on your once a week update to know about your life, that's how you should treat your blog. Like, your mother is going to call and think that you're dead if you don't update your blog, and write for whatever audience it is that you have, whether that's 100 people and 100 people following you. You think about 100 people following you in any walk of life. That's pretty significant. Like, people get hung up in these numbers of blogging. I had a conversation with somebody else yesterday morning. She said, I only have 1,000 people subscribed to my email list. I said, 1,000 people?
Wow.
Think about that. 1,000 people is more people than live in my town.
More than I have.
Like, I live in a town of 800 people. And if you think about those 800 people, if I were to send them all a letter in the mail, 90% of them would throw it out because they're not a targeted audience. But you have 1,000 people following you. That is a significant number of people following you. 100 people following you is a significant. So don't get hung up in, I have to have 1 million page views a month, or I have to have 70,000 Twitter followers. It's not about the numbers as it is about making the connection with whatever audience you have. And speaking of that, identify your audience. Figure out who it is you are really trying to write to, who you're really trying to speak to. To say ed tech people, that is way too big a market. Like, you're just throwing whatever into the wind, wheat into the wind, shaft into the wind, whatever the expression is. That's way too big a market. To even say, okay, ed tech people who are interested in K-8, that's too big a market. Think about, and this is something that I kind of came across over time, is the people who read my blog are the people who tend to think like me, who tend to be, the social studies teacher who also coaches basketball, who's kind of in the back of the staff meeting, who's kind of like, cut to the chase, right? And those are the people that tend to come to my blog. They're like the cut to the chase people, and that's who I try to write for.
Thank you.
The few times that I've tried to write things and be more like be thought leadery, whatever that means, it hasn't gone well because that's not my audience. So those are my big tips. Identify your audience, make something happen, write it. In terms of platforms, if I had to start over again, I would start on WordPress from the get-go.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I would start on WordPress from the get-go if I had to start over again. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I would use WordPress from the get-go if I had to start over again. But that's all on technical back-end stuff. The more important thing is start. I don't care really where you start. Just start.
There's a new app out right now that teaches people how to go from Blogger into WordPress.
Yeah, I know.
Just hit publish.
Although it's not quite as simple as that makes it seem. There's a lot of back-end stuff anyway.
Richard, where can we find you?
You can find me at freetechforteachers.com. You can find me on Practical Ed Tech. Depending on my dating life, you might find me on a dating website. You can Google me and you find my phone number.
Richard, everybody just left the chat right there.
Yeah.
All of a sudden. Ladies and gentlemen, give it a hand to the great Richard Byrne.
Thanks.